Gotta be
Sheriff,
careful
I mean,
about all
I haven't talked to him
taxes.
directly, but I talked to him, we talked about how they
The proportion that each share is. Let him explain it. Let him explain it.
Not $2 million budget. Yeah, so. Right, that kind of.
We're not looking at the LLU.
It's wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
Bill Rubinson did his house. So charging $900 for an empty lot. He said, "I'm already got a
You
house
know,
on it."
they charge me for my shed. But all I got is just me, no sides.
I'd like to call to order this Monday, April 4th meeting of the Ascension Parish Finance Committee. At this point, Councilman Turner is not with us. Everyone else is present. Councilman Joseph, I'm sorry, is out. He was ill. At this time, I'd like to invite Ken Dawson to lead us in prayer, followed by the pledge.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us. And on this day, we come with heavy hearts with the loss of one of our own, Garnet Gautreaux. Garnet Gautreaux served the parish well with a heart of caring for every person. He did meet a stranger, and every time he shook your hand, it was with a smile. We pray that you minister unto his family, that you minister unto his wife and his children. And Father, let us never forget the manner in which he served. We also pray for Councilman Joseph, and we thank you for taking him through his procedure today, and we pray for a speedy recovery. And continue to give us the wisdom to do well for the people of Ascension Parish. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, there are no chairs additions. I would ask anyone who wishes to speak on an item to come up with this and get with the secretary, sign a comment card, and at the appropriate time, you'll be invited to speak. Item number 5 is a resolution for the contract for future aerial imagery flights. I'd like to delay that discussion for just maybe a little later in the agenda. Justin Chamblin with the assessor's office is doing a little, making a phone call right now to answer a question that we had. And so we'll get back to that one if that's agreeable with everyone. Okay. I don't think we need a motion for that. I think we can just skip it.
So he's back.
Justin's back. Justin, do you have the answers we need?
No, not fully yet, but we'll go through everything. We'll explain what we have here and what we're trying to do.
That'll be fine. We'll move along then.
Council, just want to present to you tonight, what we are looking at is that, in 2014, we signed a contract with Photometry with a non-appropriations clause for a second flight. We necessarily didn't know what the future was going to hold and how it was going to be for us as the assessor's office. We saw the impact of our 2014 aerial imagery, and what happened is that it's now being used regularly with the school board. They use it for planning and construction for new school sites. They use it for turnarounds, identifying different things. Sheriff's office has been able to pull in a public interface like we put on our website into their CAD system for their cruisers, which helps them for security reasons, for such as, they go to a house, they got a SWAT team or something like that. You can actually see all 4 sides of a building. I mean, I can see your doormat, with this high-resolution aerial imagery. And it's been helpful to us. This is a daily item for us. I mean, half of our staff use it on a regular basis. It's also something that's been pulled in with the Parish GIS guys, and they've been able to use the imagery not only for use of, producing, the new GIS maps that, that Brian and Brandon and his team, they've been able to put together. But this is actually something that also you can use with drainage. With the stuff with the levees going on, and roads and other issues that happen. And even as recently with planning, zoning, and building, it's useful for there. The fire departments, they've been able to map all the hydrants, fire hydrants and those things. And Homeland Security, Rick Weber's, this was used very heavily with them last week, because they're trying to identify what properties, who may be affected, information, and it's a way that they can pull in that information and do it. And, the idea of what we're trying to do here is something a little different what we did for 14. When we did our project, the project was intended to do the aerial imagery. We pulled in sketching software to sketch every single improvement in the parish and also to find what was missing from the tax roll. And we did that. It generated a significant amount of revenue, not only for parish government, for the schools, for the sheriff, and such, because we just found what was missing. And we know that, that was a way where we went door to door to find out, say, look, this is what we're doing. In good faith, we did that. Not only did we collect more revenue, but we were able to, we didn't need all the funds because of obtaining that federal grant. And we actually, remember, we returned $89,000 to all the taxing bodies that contributed to that project. This is different. When I say this is different, this is setting up a mechanism in a formal way to not only fly the Parish in the winter season of 2017, but also to have a rolling flight plan every 3 years to continually update our imagery, especially considering the growth of our parish. I mean, you think about the number of buildings that have been done, the expansion projects, the work that's been done, and the changes to property. And that's important because we, as an assessor, for us to correctly assess and value property, for us to be able to go out there, there was the issue of trying to go out regularly to see, things that were hidden, things that were built, that people don't get a permit for, where they just go ahead and do it in the backyard, where you don't know about it. There's other issues about changes of land, where you may have had agricultural use, for some time. Now they've changed it, and now it's going to be used for commercial, residential. Those are things that we identify whenever we can do it. So it helps us for that reason, but it also helps for the development of the parish and other aspects at that point. So in this case, we are now, following. There's a different set of laws that we're following here. There's two sets of statutes that authorize where for aerial imagery to be done, and for image captures like this. And we did the other version basically the first go round. This is the easier version to establish and to set up for future use, where Louisiana law authorizes the parish governing authority to contract for aerial imagery and for the cost to be paid proportionally between the tax recipient bodies, those that levy a millage, only for those that levy a property tax millage. And but in this case, we're asking that this authorization to be designated as to the assessor in order to handle for the contracting of it. In other words, for us to be able to provide to y'all. Y'all have a lot of things on your plate. I mean, I know that y'all have a lot of issues, a lot of things. We're heavily involved anyway in something like this. This would allow us to basically present it to you more than it is from the standpoint of y'all having to be involved in it. When y'all are worried about, roads and subdivisions and drainage and flooding issues, I mean, those are more important on y'all's plate than something like this. And so essentially the council, y'all would be allowing the assessor to act on your behalf as a power of attorney to present it to you. And the 3-year window is important because within the contract that exists, there is a disaster aerial imagery clause in there. And so if there was like a Katrina-type hurricane, that tornado that came through the other day, now it did minimal damage, but let's say it was a Moore, Oklahoma-type tornado. Well, they would come back and they would refly the entire parish in that case for free, in between. And, but because it was isolated, it's not necessary. All the local governing bodies they're benefiting from it. And, what we're asking is that this resolution that we presented requires future approval of future flights by the council. So we will provide advance notice, and that advance notice would typically happen many months in advance of a flight. And it would also require that there would be approval of funding every time. But the funding mechanism is that once the council approves it, then each taxing body would have to pay their proportion, and that and that is the method that not only that is never really, it hasn't been done here in Ascension Parish, but is done regularly in other parishes, and it is a constant item for those other parishes to do. And some other parishes like Lafayette, they do it almost every year. They fly, I think almost every year they fly it, and if not every other year. And ultimately, we're requesting this to be formally set up in a way that will simplify what needs to be done so the council can focus on other issues. And I realize it's something different, unique, and it's, may throw some of you off, but this is a way that will help keep Ascension Parish moving in the right direction, with modern mapping, that is, just been presented, and Brian and them have done so well with the parish and for our mapping as we help keep that updated. Do you have any questions?
Absolutely. Randall?
Dustin, you said that what you want us to vote on tonight is to give you the authority to do this, and that we will be speaking for every entity in the parish that pays taxes.
That's the way Louisiana
The
law,
sheriff's office, the school board, everybody.
library, all of them.
O'Neill, quick question to you, is this legal?
I looked at the law, it's legal. You basically, what you're doing is you're authorizing them to do it and to bill everybody out of their ad valorem property taxes, their pro rata share of the bill.
Mr. Dawson?
Just
So-
a couple of, I'm sorry.
Sorry.
So basically, did you have any input from the sheriff's office or the school board? Telling them that you were coming to us to authorize us to take their tax money?
We've had conversations that we would do this in the future, so there was some awareness that would occur. The specificity of, the numbers, has not been presented.
And what you're setting up by resolution tonight
I
is
say that.
perpetual, right?
Well, this would be perpetually every 3 years coming before the council
For another vote to go for another
for a
3
motion
years.
to approve for it to go forward.
Yeah.
After the costs have been presented and the information of what's been,
Thank you,
laid
Doug.
out there.
Mr. Dawson?
Justin, I'm trying to get a clarification myself. So when you did this the first time, you went to each one of these entities and you got their approval, is that
Yes, sir.
correct?
Yes, sir.
So now it's gonna be, you're gonna get the approval of us and we're gonna give you the authority to spend $170,000 of other people's money? Is that correct?
To acquire ill imagery.
Okay. Let me ask you this. You talked about, you did this in 2014, and there are a lot of things that have happened since in the last 2 years. Well, what's the process there? If somebody gets a building permit or certificate of occupancy, or, don't you have a process in place that grabs these things?
We do have a process in place. We work with the parish planning and zoning through their online permit system. We're able to generate reports to, every month, to have our field guys go out there, collect the necessary data. As people come in, we collect that information as well, for homestead exemptions and such. So we do have a method in place to address, the growth and what's there. However, too, it looks differently at some point. At some point, the imagery itself becomes stale and old. When you start looking at, if you go look at a Google map, and it's saying you don't have houses on there anymore, well, people expect, some updating every so often. And this 3-year time period is a time period that we looked at, number one, for the emergency disaster flights, and number two, for the amount of growth that we have, I think it's a reasonable time period.
So let me make sure I'm understanding that correctly. So you're just trying to update the maps. You already have the data on the properties that are there?
Yes, sir. We added over 6,000 missing improvements from our.
Well, I understand the first time. I'll be honest, I'm uncomfortable.
Councilman Saver?
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and thank you, Justin. Bill sort of took my question, but it made me think of other questions. In 2014, I remember this, and when you came and you got APSO and APSB and ourselves and individually, this state law that Mr. Parrington just referenced, was that in existence back then?
It existed. It's actually good. It's
Y'all
been
didn't
around
know
a long
about it,
time.
or you did know about it, but just chose
Yeah.
to come see all of us anyway?
because it was a different circumstance than the way it is, we felt it was right to go knock on every single 15 different doors.
See, I thought we gave you the most grief and the other folks readily because the return on investment, which is going to be a follow-up question in a minute, was really good for them, for us, because we don't get a whole lot.
It's still $500,000 for parish tax alone that was generated from that.
That was my next question. So, well, but we would still be getting that from the I don't know what the percentage
And you're getting
was
it
around
every
the
year
paper.
now.
Yeah.
You know, this for the first time this past collection, the parish tax, that 2.86 millage has now generated over $3 million of tax revenue, property tax revenue.
Right, but like Councilman Dawson said, like I say, took my question is, if you just start looking at building permits, a certificate of occupancy, he mentioned whatever, seems to me with that manual old-style process added to the fact that you said in 2014 you flew, and I've captured here, you've updated the, you know where things are and everything. That would be like the vast majority, would it not, of anything that would be added between 2014 now and going forward? Other than I captured land use changes, is that like rezonings and things like that, or it may be through a certificate of occupancy or a building permit you couldn't get hold of? Or?
Yeah, we may get the data, and don't get me wrong. You know, we're going to get the data, we're going to see it, but this allows us to, I mean, to catch other information and to actually continue to work. We still have to look at the idea of revaluing properties and reassessing them every 4 years, which requires us to always have the most effective information that we can. If we don't update this information, well, there may be a change in the condition of that property between 14 and 17. You could do not only you could do an addition to the property, you could change it. Those things can be seen. And whenever instead of having necessarily, the need to whether or not you need a field guy to go out there to look at the property, our appraisers can actually use this information and imagery for assessment purposes to actually value and determine, what the property looks like. Now, it may end up requiring that they go get a picture if we don't have one. But if we do, then it's something that we can help, identify what's there. And we can use it for measuring. We actually measure square footage off the imagery. And we can verify what we have. And that issue has come up.
Thank you.
Ultimately, the school board is aware. They've already actually put in this, Diane Allison, she already has, had this information for her budget for next year, for the 101,000.
Mr. President.
Justin, when y'all came to see me, I wasn't under the impression that we were voting for everybody. And
Sure.
I did, the school board sounds pretty good, and the sheriff didn't sound as good, but we're gonna have a meeting fairly soon, and I was gonna, get the gist of everybody, but I didn't realize we were voting for everybody with a millage. I know our people with millages, but I didn't know the sheriff and the school board and all that. So my ignorance is that I think we need to, the meeting I have set up is for a lot of things, and one thing can be is about this before y'all vote on it.
And I think that's proper. If that helps to get, to make everybody feel a lot more fuzzier about it, then we'll do it.
I think you see a lot more
Madam-
warm fuzzy next time you come if we're not
Madam
voting
Chairman?
to send the sheriff's money anywhere.
Motion to delay.
Mr. Johnson.
I'd do that as well. I'll make the motion to postpone this for a month and get back with that. But Kenny, one of the things Justin's bringing up tonight is about the Homeland Security and all these other agencies using it. And we've seen nothing indicating from within the administration of those departments that they're using this data. And so I'd like to have something back from them as well.
We'll
because,
get a report back to you,
First time
Councilman.
we did this was all strictly on the millages and those type of things, which I was hesitant about supporting it, but we went ahead and done it. And I see the value in it, but at the same time, I'm hesitant about supporting the rest of it or throwing the sheriff and the school board in this mix on our own without having their say-so. So I'll make that motion.
Second.
And I have one other question. Is this the same company that we have contracted with?
It's still,
Prior?
technically, we're still under contract with the same company, yeah.
Okay.
Pictometry, they are the best in the industry. They created what is being done with the oblique imagery and the ortho imagery.
Okay.
And,
And I have another couple of questions. Councilman Kluwak.
Yeah, so, on your chart here. You've got a bunch of lighting districts that there's no dollar value by.
It was probably like $20 or $80 or, I mean, we can go back in and add the, you know, if it was less than $100.
Yeah, we know where that big one's at.
Yeah. If it was less than $100, it wasn't on there.
Come on now.
Now, I
You leave
mean,
$100 on the table?
well,
I
it
understand.
was so
I'm just
minute.
joking. I'm just joking. I just
It was
didn't
so
know what-
minute, it wasn't even worth
So the
messing with.
same way with the Chafla Basin levee
Yeah.
district and the Bay Lafourche freshwater district.
They don't,
I was just wondering why the blanks.
they don't collect a lot. I mean, in the I mean, honestly, you're looking at, you know, Bayou Lafourche, I think it's about 60,000 in revenue, you know, from the parish. Chapel is about the same.
Okay, and nothing within the municipalities.
No, nothing in municipalities.
Right. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Any other questions, gentlemen? Mr. Cagnolati?
Justin, you mentioned that y'all are required by law to do this, reassess every 4 years.
Yes.
Could you set this up, instead of every 3 years, do it the third year of the, do it 4 years apart and give yourself enough time to use that data to do your?
We could extend the time period. I mean, we initially set the
Would it,
time
would
period.
it, would it hurt the process to do it every 4 instead of every 3?
We could look at revising it every 4 years. The only reason I was sticking with the 3 years is for that disaster, the flight, and that was the only reasoning behind it,
Okay.
honestly. Other than that, I mean, 4 years could be, I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. It would just need to be set up in a way that we could use it prior to reassessment.
Sure.
Councilman Johnson?
One other question. So if we agree to do this, in 4 years you come back, or 3 years you come back, and the council says, no, we're not paying for it, what are we obligated to? Anything?
Nothing. I mean, that's the council's, you know, that's the power you have as the council.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to defer this item to the next, Mr. Kluwa?
One quick question. Do we see, based on the millages, do you see the dollar values going up? You see these guys' contract increasing? I'm just saying, you're pulling off the millages, are you pulling a percentage of the millage, or are you just
No.
dividing the bill between everybody? And do you see that going up? 'Cause in 10 years, you had about 600 grand, if it don't go up.
The cost of it is dependent on a lot of things. Fuel costs, you know, the grid pattern's already set because we've already, you know, done it now. And, you know, but the choice and the value, the cost of it depends on the type of resolution. This was all 3-inch resolution imagery against the entire parish. You know, so, you know, if you do a lower resolution,
Right.
which isn't as useful, you know, the cost goes down significantly. You know, if you even go, there is, you know, instances where I've seen where they can even do a 2.5 to a 2-inch resolution, which I don't think is necessary. Lafayette actually is pushing to do a 2-inch resolution, I believe, this year. And, you know, I don't think that's necessary for us. I mean, 3 inches is sufficient to see the information you need.
That's what I wanted to ask you, that resolution.
Yeah.
The amount of resolution you're getting out of that imagery is good enough for you.
Yeah, so there's a lot involved, you know, when it comes down to, you know, what's involved with the cost, you know, of it. But, you know, it will vary. You know, a lot of it depends on, you know, all kind of factors going on out in the world that, you know, change. Yeah,
Thank you, ma'am.
Justin, we thank you. Do we have
I don't know if you have it yet.
I have a motion and a second. Do I have any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Justin,
Say
I
it
would
again.
ask you to have the folks that are going to be, whose budgets will be affected by this, at least in some form, communicate to you
We'll have a
that you
letter.
can communicate to us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Item number 6 is the appointments to the Nonprofit Appropriations Subcommittee. I will be making those appointments, and the 3 individuals are Mark Vila, Emily Domain, and Councilman Bill Dawson.
So moved. You left out Mr. Pettit.
Ah, and Mr. Pettit, I'm sorry, Mr. Jeff Pettit. There were 4. Yeah, well, those are you're already on there. The new appointments were the only ones I was concerned about. I have a motion by Mr. Lambert, Dempsey Lambert.
Second it.
Second by Mr. Benny Johnson. Any objections?
Question.
Mr. Sadler?
No objection, and thank you, Madam Chairman. We will need a secretary for minutes for this. Maybe Mr. Matassa would sign that individual tonight, or do I need to come talk to you, Ken? Someone from an administration. It would just take minutes first. And I anticipate, sir, probably initial meeting where the new committee members get their, indoctrination, and then maybe the actual meeting where we select the nonprofit organizations. Thank you,
See
sir.
you tomorrow.
All right, so that's Mark Vila, Bill Dawson, Emily Domain, and Jeff Pettit. Any objections? Yes.
Question.
Yes, Mr. Cluett.
Have we redirected our protocol for selection of the nonprofits? As
No.
I remember, it was based on a project,
I
and
think
I
it's-
remember 60% of the total funds going to one nonprofit at that time. I would ask that committee take a look at that protocol. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely, your observation is understood, and Mr. Sadler can discuss that with the committee.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, any objections to those appointments? Hearing none, that motion passes. All right. Item number 7, professional services contract with Stericycle Environmental Solutions. Tommy Marshall is the safety officer. Mr. Dawson, you're going to be handling that?
Yeah, this is just a standard contract that we normally use for those
Make that
hazardous
motion,
waste
Madam
days that we confidently do every year.
Motion by Councilman Todd Lambert,
I have a question.
second by Aaron Lawler, and we now have questions. Mr. Dawson.
Well, Ken, you might not be able to answer this, but how much is it gonna really cost? I see the 499,999.
It goes by the weight or containers. Stericycle also does our health unit and needles and all that kind of stuff.
So do
Goes
we
by
have
the
to-
containers, the boxes.
We don't have a anticipation of what it'll cost.
It's not to exceed.
It's gonna be below that.
I think it's a good thing, don't misunderstand me.
They're a
Also,
very
you know,
professional
just-
company.
Just looking through this, I happened to look at the contract, and it says in here in the scope of services, it says, to dispose of all materials with close attention to compliance of all state and parish rules and regulations. Why is it just close attention?
Well, they can handle anything, you know. I know.
Well,
Because when they take it, they're responsible for it.
Right.
That's what.
Well, why don't we just say
With
that they
adherence.
have to,
In
they have to
accordance
be
with.
in, I don't know what is close attention.
Well, O'Neill, you can add, when they pick it up, it's theirs.
Okay.
Well, I see there's some other belt suspenders in here, but, normally it'd be not close, it'd be, you will be in
accordance
compliance.
In accordance
accordance
with.
In accordance with all state
Accordance with
applicable
all
laws.
state,
yeah.
So I have a motion and a
That's all.
second. Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 8, the extension of lease with Parish Truck Leasing for 36 months for 2 HINO dump trucks for West Ascension drainage in the amount of $1,618.38 each month, and 1 FUSO fuel truck for East Ascension drainage in the amount of $1,565.21 per month. Mr. Bill Depew, nice to see you this evening.
Nice to see y'all, Madam Chairman, members of the council. Any questions?
I got one.
Mr. Todd Lambert.
Yeah, I guess, I thought we were going away from the leasing thing, in the
We are, these,
past, because we've experienced that it's costing us more, and we take this truck and, before we get to turn it in, it gets wrecked or whatever else, we have to repair it, we have to do all the maintenance on it before we turn it back in, and, I think it has been costing us quite a bit of money to return these vehicles, and I thought we was gonna start purchasing them, so we can get a little bit more, buck there.
and we are, we're purchasing everything. These are unique vehicles that were spec'd for us and built to our specifications. They're 3 years old, they're really low mileage. We got a significant reduction on the monthly to extend them for 36 months. And the reason we did that is that they're due to be turned in the third month of this year and the end of this month. In order to have purchased a replacement and have it built and have it delivered, we would have had to order this truck last year. And the decision wasn't quite made at that time. And these are the last of the extensions of leases or leasing at all. We're now purchasing everything. But these 4 vehicles that are on tonight were built specifically for us. For example, the Fuso is a 4x4 that can get up in little small places. It's used to haul all the fuel to all of our mowing operations and our operations on the levees and drainage and that kind of thing. So it is a unique little vehicle. It's not been used significantly, but now we're using it as part of a regular route to fill our mowers and stuff as they're mowing to save time, increase productivity. The 36-month extension, that particular vehicle was leasing at almost $2,000 a month. Now it is a 3 years old vehicle. We're leasing it at a much lower rate. It'll be for 36 months, and at the end of that, it'll be a 6-year-old vehicle. So it's part of the closeout process of the closed-in leases.
Why we don't look at purchasing it now? Why we still got a lot of life on it?
The reason we didn't purchase this year is the decision in order to have a vehicle here in place. When this one had to be turned in, we would have had to purchase it last year. And the decision was made last year to do that. In March is when this has to be turned in.
Mr. Bill.
I think,
Mr. Bill.
he's asking, can you purchase the one you
Purchase
got?
it now.
No, we
See, that's
cannot
the question.
purchase it because of the closed-in leases. It appeared to be that our intent was to purchase it all along, so therefore legally we weren't. That was our first option, or to try. After several discussions with our legal department, it was determined that we could not even bid it out as a bid.
Well, you know, I questioned these leases way back when you first come on, and I said I don't think that's the way to go, and it has proven that it cost us a whole lot more than what we could do by buying them. So.
I agree with you 100%, and like I say, everything we're purchasing now, all of our equipment this year has been purchased, and in the meantime, we did a couple of, in the early stages when the decision wasn't made to revert, we did a couple of lease purchases where we were making lease payments, but at the end of the lease, we owned it for $1 in the case of the grapple trucks. And these are the last of the leases that if I ever have, we will never do another closed-in lease. We have a lot of other ways to acquire vehicles. Like this year, most of our stuff we got off of state contracts or piggybacking from other contracts, and we bought it. And like I say, these are unique vehicles. The grapple truck, you have to build the truck. You buy the chassis. The manufacturer then builds it, puts on the grapple. Because of our unique requirements for a fuel truck, not many people have a four-wheel drive fuel truck, all-wheel, to get off of the roads and be able to fuel stuff. So this was specifically built. I would love to have been able to buy it and put out a bid for it and purchase a truck that's 3 years old with 16,500 miles on it, and I think we would have got a good bid on it. But we had several discussions with our legal department, and because it was a closed-in lease, it would have appeared that it was a circumvention of the bid law with intent to purchase it all, from the very first day.
Say this first one right here. What does it cost to purchase that vehicle if we bought it new today?
The fuel truck, it would be $95,000.
And we're going to pay with this lease right here close to what?
With that lease, we will be paying $1,565 for the rest of this year. For 2016, we'll pay $7,825, and then it will be 12 times the $1,565 for the next 2 years. So in actuality, you end up over the same period of time, it'll be a 6-year-old vehicle that will have very little residual value at that point. Right now, when we turn in the lease vehicles, what was happening to us is we would turn in a lease vehicle and it would resell, and we couldn't get a portion of the resale value of it. The only way we can get rid of vehicles that we own is through public auction. We can't get a reseller to resell the vehicles and actually get the maximum amount for the vehicle that we could if we could use a reseller to sell some of our vehicles. Some of our equipment is unique in that it doesn't have a lot of mileage on it because it's emergency equipment, that we use it primarily during the grapple trucks, for example. The primary use of the grapple trucks, heavy, is during an emergency. But it is the intent. These are the last, and there's another one under here for the grapple truck. But this is the last time we will be doing any lease extensions.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yes, I have a motion by Aaron Lawler, second by John Cagnalotti. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 9,
Motion?
have a motion and a second. Any questions?
Yeah, I just got a quick statement. I just, I don't want you to, while Todd's talking about leasing, there's a right time to lease something. Sometimes when we have special needs for a project, that's
Yeah,
a short term.
Right. And those are actually
Please consider the
rentals.
lease.
It's just a terminology change, but we do short-term rentals. And there are some opportunities that we could look at in the future that are a different kind of lease, other than a closed-in leased option, where we do have some value in the residual asset at the end. The ideal is to get your fleet to where it's 4 to 5 years old, depending on the kind of equipment it is, and be able to turn it in and get replacement equipment. So less maintenance, reduces the maintenance cost. This little fuel truck has been really good, and it's the ideal little truck to get up into the places we need to go.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The motion and the second is on the floor, and do we have any other comments or questions? Hearing none, the motion passes. Let's see. Item number 10, renewal of the professional services contract with Mr. Roberto Macedo and Associates for administration of Parish Section 8 program, a total amount not to exceed $66,500. Ms. Martha.
Thank you,
Nice to
Madam
see you.
Chairman. Good to see you, members of the council. This is a renewal on this particular contract. We have 1 year into the contract, and this is renewal for 2 years. So-
Motion, Madam
Have a
Chairman.
motion by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman John Cagnalotti, and a question by Mr. Bill Dawson.
Martha, I wanted to ask you, the contract, we talked about this earlier, but just to, so you can say it over the microphone, but the contract is $66,000, and we go out for RFQs on anything above $49,999,999. Why does this not fall in that?
Okay, what this is we went out for RFQs for professional services, and then the contract itself is negotiated on the cost of the Section 8 program. So it actually can go down, but what we've done is, depending on the vouchers and what it entails, that's why they put this cost. Normally, we don't have this cost in here because it does go up and down, but the renewal is for just to administer the Section 8. And we did go out for RFQs for this, and he was vetted and was the winning company for the first go-round. So this is just a renewal of his contract.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, Mr. President.
If y'all don't know this man, but he's been around us a while. He does an excellent job. And if any questions on Section 8 housing or anybody that calls, like I had a lady that called and said she had something wrong with the house. Of course, I sent an inspector over there, and he went out, and, I mean, he resolves things quick. I mean, he doesn't mess around. He's got a, he takes care of all the government regulations. Does a great job.
Thank you,
Motion.
Mr. President.
Oh, you have a motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
I think, Madam Chairman, in the future, we'll probably have Mr. Roberto come in. He does a yearly update for the council members. So we can ask him after this is renewed, maybe towards the middle of the year, to come in and give you a complete update of where we are on the program.
Yes, I recall that he has done that
Yes,
annually, and we would
he usually
appreciate that
does.
he would continue to.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're quite welcome.
All right, item number 11, and amendment number 4 to master contract for architectural services to extend the term of the contract with Grace and Abear for Lamar Dixon Improvements Architectural Services to May 20th, 2017. Ms. Martha. Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Second,
second by Councilman Randy Cluott. Any questions?
quick question.
Yes,
Mr.
sir.
Cluott.
Ms. Collins, can you?
Yes, sir.
Can you give us an explanation for the extension and?
Yes, sir, I'll be happy to. What this is the project, total project, it was CDBG, or Community Development Block Grant Funds, and FEMA funds. what we did is that we actually went into a phase and did the 4-H building and the safe room first, which included the block grant funds and FEMA's funds for wind hardening. The second phase is what we're going into now. The issue was that this contract was going to be up before the project could be finished. So all we're doing is extending the contract time-wise. There's no money change. It's strictly time to allow him to finish the project, and then added a few months because of closeout.
So there's no change order?
There's
or
no
dollar
change.
value.
It is strictly time, and I should have said that.
And it's 100%
Funded, yes, sir.
Funded anyway?
Yes, sir. There's no
By,
more money.
It's
It's
all
all
grant
funded
money.
by the
It's all
grant. It's just a
Wanna make
time
that clear.
thing that we want to make sure that we have enough time and won't have to come back if it gets too close.
Thank you.
So I have a motion and a second. Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank
Ms.
you.
Martha. Item number 12, the monthly contracts report. Ms. Sandra.
Good evening. You have in your packet a list of all the contracts that were entered into in the month of March.
I got a quick question.
Mr. Kluwat?
We got number 4, the Sky High Aviation for OEP.
Number 3.
Yeah.
3.
And number 3,
3 and 4.
for aerial images, OEP. If we have a contract for that, did we just hear from the assessor's office that the money that they wanted us to put forward, that what OEP was using, that we have our departments? Ms. Collins, you can answer that?
These two contracts are actually within a
Please.
grant. I'm sorry. These two contracts that are in here are actually being covered by the grant for an OEP existing grant. And therefore, this part is covered. If we need, they can go out and do the flybys and give us a complete
So
access to it.
this is not, in other words, this service by this grant for these departments of parish government is not funded by what the assessor's office was asking for. It's actually funded separately, right? By
I will
this.
tell you that I'm not sure what the
You telling me
assessor.
this is grant money,
I am not
right?
speaking,
You
I am
telling me this is
speaking
grant money,
on
right?
the grant itself covers a FEMA, covers flyovers for this, this year,
Okay.
if needed.
And this is
If
just,
You
needed.
said this,
Right, they do
If we have a
some type
hurricane
of.
and we need them to do it, that's what
Right.
it's for. It's nothing to do with the assessor's office.
right.
This is a
for
grant.
flyovers, emergencies and
You're right.
hurricanes. So there's
Right.
just two
Exactly right.
contracts, one with Aviation Specialties Incorporated, and one with Sky High Aviation, both for
Those-
OEP.
Yes,
And these are covered by grants.
that's
Damage
exactly
assessment
right.
post-storm is what we're talking about for
Yes.
this?
Yes, sir.
And so,
Thank you.
Yes, I do
Thank you,
think they
ma'am.
were used for with the flooding, and that's.
Yes,
I think,
ma'am,
the
that's
flyover.
all, we're
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah.
sure of that, we just want to make it
Right.
clear.
right. It is
Thank you,
just
my
part
answer,
of-
my question's
So
answered.
it's paid for by the grant.
Thank you.
Awesome.
any other questions? Mr. Cagnolati?
I just have a question. Item 1, my copy says Robert J. Robert. Should that be, is that a typo? Roland J. Robert?
Probably so, I'm sorry.
Just
Got a
make
lot of
sure
Roberts.
the record is accurate.
That's Roland J. Robert.
Any other questions? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. This was very helpful information. All right, item number 13, budget amendment number 3, approval to introduce an ordinance to amend the 2016 budget. Ms. Dawn Caballero.
Good evening. You have before you an ordinance for budget amendment number 3, which reads as follows. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2016 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 19th day of November 2015. Section 1. The Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, and appropriating the 2016 operating and capital budgets for the Parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, general fund, planning development department, expenditures, engineering services, review of subdivision plans, etc., $250,000. Professional services, Duncan and Associates contract, $10,000. Sales tax district number 1, expenditures and other financing uses, transfer out to ACUD number 1, $55,000. Lighting district number 3, expenditures, contract payments for installation of lights at Laurie Park, $30,000. Jail, expenditures and other financing uses, major repairs for replacement of a cooling tower, $60,000. ACUD number 1, revenues and other financing sources, transfer in from sales tax district number 1, $55,000. Expenditures, engineering services for the chloramine booster station project, $20,000. Professional services for the chloramine booster station project, $35,000. ACUD number 2, expenditures and other financing sources. Transfer out to the Water Wastewater Construction Fund, $434,000. Capital budget, Water Wastewater Construction Fund, revenues and other financing sources. Transfer in from ACUD number 2 for the Corps of Engineers grant match, $434,000. Expenditures, appropriations, and grants for the Corps of Engineers grant match, $434,000.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Kluwat, a second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any questions? Councilman Satterly.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The $250,000 for engineering services to review subdivision plans, my question is, I think we all received in email this week 2 job descriptions last week, one for a hiring of a traffic engineer and one for a drainage engineer, which I assume are to be used to review subdivision plans as well. I'm curious as to, are those people being hired so that we no longer have to contract out money to these independent engineering service companies, or what's going on there?
Can I answer this?
Certainly, Mr. President.
Okay, we put out to see if we can get a drainage and a traffic engineer, not to check out the plans, but to actually work for us. We have a lot of road work, and we have a lot of drainage, and we just want to see if they're out there that we can hire to work for us, Mr. Sally, not to actually do reviews. And this monies that we're putting in the fund, the company's going to work for us and do reviews independently, and we're going to come back to you with an ordinance change to up the price of reviews to cover the costs.
Mr. Lambert.
What is our problem now with reviewing plans? Because I've been on board a while now, and I don't recall having that much major problem on reviewing plans.
Well,
why do we have to go outside and pay that kind of money for engineering to review them when we got staff people qualified and educated in doing so? And they've been to school. We've sent them to all kind of schools to do these.
Well, yes, Mr. Councilman, you remember that initially, toward the end of last year, we were behind on a lot of reviews. It's just the quantity of reviews that were coming in. We just didn't have the staff to even keep up. And if you remember, we used T. Baker Smith, I think, as a company to actually come in and assist and catch those things up. It was just the volume that we had. Also, we had trouble finding, even staff. I mean, we have right now Mr. Bob Turner, who is here and kind of retired several times and still is now here helping us doing some of our traffic reviews, which we'll be returning later. So in order to make sure that we stay on top of the mass amount of reviews that were coming in, we looked at getting a agency that has a staff there all the time that could turn these things around in a faster manner, of 2 weeks type turnaround. So the goal is not to cost any additional monies coming from the parish, but because there were times that we would get 2 or 3 different reviews of the same drawings, and it would cause a big pileup because it just became very convoluted. But with an engineering company, talking to an engineering company, and they have staff there all the time, and they can put the workforce and the manpower whenever needed by the number, it seems to be a better situation. Again, the goal is not to increase any funds that we get, because if there is another review that's required, it's up to that engineering firm to pay for additional reviews if they start handing us 30% drawings or 50% complete drawings instead of what's really required.
The cost for these reviews are going up. Are we way low on price as far as what we charge?
we lock, okay, let me just give you, for instance, if we dealing with one company and we deal with them and it takes 5 hours, we deal with another one and it takes 10 hours, we still got the same cost. I mean, we charging them the same thing, but it's costing us 5 times more.
We do a flat rate per plat, right?
Yes, sir.
Or
We do,
per review.
so much a lot in 2000, and then $20 per lot. But we do not have a drainage engineer, right? We don't have a hydraulics engineer, and Mr. Bob Turner's only gonna be here 3 more months, and he's doing roads right now, so we're gonna be in a bind. We could use both of those engineers if they.
And what was the 2 firms' name? You use the outside firms?
CSRS is the company to do the reviews.
We were using T. Baker Smith for the last couple of years.
We used T. Baker Smith in the past,
That's all we got.
and CSRS.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, any further
Yeah,
questions? Mr.
I
Dempsey
would
Lambert.
definitely agree with the president on this. I had a drainage issue here 2 weeks ago. Plans are getting changed up and different things. If people are not watching this, from the engineer back to the plans, they changing up coverage sizes, they changing up different things, and we don't know it until the end. So we have to have people in place here to overlook this. So I think the problem's gonna be is the salaries. What are we offering for a drainage engineer?
We just trying to see if we can get them to the table right now.
That's what, I mean, you have to understand, you're gonna have to pay a decent salary to attract anyone. And for traffic, I mean, that's big,
That's specialty.
yeah.
Yes, sir. Mr. Sadler.
Yeah, and a follow-up question. The 2 adverts I saw were, of course, degreed individuals in civil engineering with, I've read maybe 5 years' experience, but it was preferred but not required that they have a PE. What's the logic behind that, and why don't we need professional engineers on staff?
Well, you'd want a PE if you could get them, but I mean, right now, we just, our engineers, besides the plan reviews, which they were behind, we deal with drainage every day. Bill deals with drainage every day, and we deal with roads almost every day. So, but I didn't catch that, Mr. Sadler.
Well, I'm curious, if they have to sign off, can they sign off without?
No, you need a PE to
What do
sign
our
off.
ordinances require?
Correct.
Do you have to have a PE to sign these things?
You need an engineer with a PE to sign off.
I hear
yes.
no over here, and I'm seeing 2 nodded heads yes over here.
On-
You do? That's what I thought.
The review is usually done by lesser personnel for the most part.
So
and
these
reviewed by
folks
PE.
could not sign then, that we're hiring, or they may be able to if they happen to have PEs and they apply.
Well, sure, if they are PE, only PEs can sign them.
Right, so, again, we don't necessarily need a PE though, because these people you're saying aren't necessarily gonna do plans. They're gonna do other work, you said, in the parish.
Let me see if I can explain a little bit. Some of the things that we're doing with the drainage department, that we have Darryl Primo's doing, and doing a lot of culvert design and doing those kind of things. You got to have a PE that's going to stamp those things and say those designs have been done up to the proper standard.
Right.
We also have a lot of traffic projects. For instance, the Ashland St. Landry Road, that project is being designed in-house. So we doing that in-house, so that traffic, instead of going out for bid and constantly doing that, a lot of the traffic kind of designs that we're doing, we're not doing them in-house. That's being done in-house. We're also looking at our maintenance plan. You know how we do our yearly road maintenance? A lot of times we went out for bids on that. We're looking at bringing that in-house. One of the goals was to have the expertise to bring those things in-house. Tacey Raveley was a hire, a PE that we got from New Orleans that lived in Ascension Parish. I mean, has done a great job at that. Joey Turo, PE, that we brought in for DOTD. And Joey is saying that in order to really complete this effort of bringing a lot of engineering services in-house with our people, he's looking at another traffic person to kind of assist with this. So the goal is that a lot of these designs that initially went out, we want to bring them in-house with our people who are familiar with a lot of things going on here to complete those designs in-house.
Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
And they would be supervised by PEs.
Yeah, and they would be, and a lot of those are PEs as well.
Okay, thank you very much. The only comment I would add to this is I think that these plan reviews need to be done timely. Time is money. Time is money not only for the parish, but certainly for those who have borrowed money and who are trying to get a project done. And so in order to provide timely the timely review of plans, it's important. So I'm glad to hear that we're doing this. Any further questions? Any objections to this amendment? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item number 14, a review of the 2016 millage process. Ms. Gwen LeBlanc.
Good evening. You have before you a little pamphlet entitled the 2016 Millage Review. We'll go over it quickly. This is just to let you know some facts and figures and what you will be doing in the near future. The Louisiana Constitution requires all property subject to taxation to be reappraised and valued at least once every 4 years. 2016 is a reassessment year. As a council, sitting as a governing authority, you have two main functions to fulfill this duty. First, you have to adopt the millage for parish government, and then in early October, you sit as a board of review to adopt the Ascension Parish Assessment Roll, which includes all the taxing districts in the parish. This process begins in May and ends with the acceptance of the tax roll by the Louisiana Tax Commission in November of each year. And after we quickly review this process, I will present at the May Finance meeting two ordinances for introduction and the appropriate calling of a public hearing in order to adopt the millage ordinances. First ordinance is to adopt the millage rate as will be set by the assessor this year, as it is a reassessment year. And the second ordinance would be to roll forward if you deem appropriate. So if you turn to the first page on the procedures, the first item is adoption of millage rates in non-reassessment year. So we'll skip that one and go down to number 2 because it is a reassessment year in 2016. All property subject to taxation, as I just stated, shall be reappraised and valued at least every 4 years. Millages are adjusted by the assessor upward or downward, depending on the property values. The Louisiana Constitution and the revised statutes provides for increases in millage rates to the prior year's maximum. In other words, if your property assessment values go up, he will adjust the millages to equal the same amount of money as in 2015. And after you have to adopt those millages, thereafter you have the choice to go back to the prior year's maximum, which is always for us the amount of millage adopted by the voters of the parish. And then the adjusted millages as established by the assessor are required to be reviewed by the legislative auditor, and thereafter the assessor will present to each taxing district. We should have our taxing districts, according to Justin, tonight in about 2 weeks. Of course, we adopt all of our millages by ordinance at a public meeting. And after it's introduced, you have the public hearing, and you know the process to adopt an ordinary ordinance. The first ordinance that sets forth and designates the adjusted rates as set by the assessor and approved by the legislative auditor requires a majority vote of the total membership of the council. turn to page 2, the second ordinance sets forth and designates the adjusted rates and the increased rates, which is the prior year's maximum. And this adoption of this ordinance requires a 2/3 vote of the total membership of the council. And number 3, the parish council, as the governing authority parish, sits as a board of review and certifies the tax roll for all the taxing districts in the parish as prepared and presented by the assessor. Your public hearing follows the assessor's exposure of the assessment rolls, and he has to do that for a certain amount of days, and then we immediately follow with a public hearing, and the public hearing goes on until your meeting when you sit as a board of review, and any taxpayer who has not resolved the issue with the assessor has the right to appeal to the council. Section 4 is the quietus. The parish receives annual audit reports from the sheriff's auditor for the tax collector agency fund of the Ascension Parish Sheriff. And once received, the parish treasurer will issue a quietus to the assessor on behalf of all the taxing districts, which states that the sheriff, as tax collector, has exhibited satisfactory evidence that all taxes due, as shown on the ad valorem tax rolls of Ascension Parish for the current year, have been paid or accounted for by the sheriff. And the Section 5, this is information, parish, this is our taxing, parish government taxing district millages, and we have in the first column all the taxing districts, and then in the middle column is the 2015 millage, which is the latest that was adopted by you, the council, and the expiration date of each tax. You can see the parish tax is a constitutional tax, so it has no expiration date, and then you can follow through with all of our taxing districts that have millages, and if you about half, a little less, more than halfway, if you see the last lighting district, number 7, that tax expires this year in 2016, and it will appear on your agenda for your April 7th meeting to call the election for that renewal. The only other one in the before you get to the 2020s is East Ascension Consolidated Gravity Drainage. That one expires at the end of 2018. All of our millages are 10 years except the constitutional millage for the general fund. The Utilities District number 1, which is ACUD number 1, is for 25 years, and the Juvenile Detention Center millage is for 20 years on page 3. And then parcel fees are not included in the millage process. Therefore, this is for information only. The only parcel fee we have left is the Road Lighting District number 4. That parcel fee expires in 2018. It was a 10-year term. It's $25 per residential and $100 per commercial, and that's on the west side of the river. All of the 7 lighting districts, 5 are on the west side of the river and 2 are on the east side. And then Section 4 is just, 6, sorry. A few facts. Ad valorem is according to value. Taxes are assessed a dollar amount according to the property value. And 1 mil equals 1/10 of 1 cent or $1 per 1,000 of assessed value. In 2015, 1 mil parish-wide, including the municipalities, yield $1,165,858. And rural only, outside of the municipalities, yield $1,037,140. And then all parish taxes are subject to homestead exemption. The 2.86 general fund ad valorem tax within the city limits reduces to half, 1.43 mils. Taxable value equals fair market value less homestead exemption. And a property is assessed in 3 categories. 1, real property, which is your land and your immovables. All land is 10% of fair market value. Residential buildings are 10% also. Commercial buildings are 15% of fair market value. And the second category is personal property, which is your movables like equipment and furniture and all your inventory. That is assessed at 15% of fair market value. And the third category is public service property, which is your utilities. It's 25% of fair market value, and that is assessed by the Louisiana Tax Commission instead of the assessors of the state. On page 4 is just some charts, just that you can review at your pleasure. The first chart on page 4 is the taxing authorities for parish government, and it's based on the 2015, the latest figures we have, property taxes, and that was over 30 million. And then on page 5 is all the taxing districts in the parish, and that is also based on the latest 2015 ad valorem taxes, and that's over 127 million, and you can see all that and the sources that we got it from. And then on page 6 is the process for the council to sit as a board of review in October, and it just goes through the appeals process that you can look at if you're interested. And the next 3 pages are the laws that are involved in this process. Public meetings law, there's the public records law, and just the reassessment laws of the state. And I have these laws in their entirety. If, once you look at it, if you're interested, I can get you a copy. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Quick question.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Councilman Klua.
Yes, Gwen, if you go to your first chart there, and down in the notes on the side, you have parish government at 3.115 million, 3.150, in a little square box.
Right.
And of course, juvenile detention at 1.1, and ACUD 308. And we have the library at 7.9 million.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Randy. Mr. Lawler.
Yes, the second step that we have when we set forth and designate the adjusted rates, and they can be either kept at 2015 levels or adjusted to the increased levels. Are each millage that we'd be considering, are they severable? Can we consider each one individually?
Yes, you can.
Thank you.
Mr. Klua.
Yeah, quick question. To adjust these millages, and I'll ask legal, what's the process of doing that?
I think she just laid out the process.
Okay.
To change the millage, you got to go to the public if you're going to go above what's been approved.
But to either redirect or lower?
Well, you got to go to the public. If you're going to redirect, you have to go to the public. If you're going to lower, you need to go. If it's going to be less than the money they were taking at the time before, I think you have to go to the public. Is that correct?
That's on all cases, so it's basically to the public in all cases?
No.
No.
No, you can keep it at the same rate, or you can roll it forward to 2016 rates.
That's what we want to make sure.
Yeah, during reassessment year, the assessor actually sets everybody's millage based on his reassessment figures, and you have to adopt that. But then if you want to roll forward, if your property values go up, your millage is going to go down. So that would give you the opportunity to roll it forward to prior year's maximum, which in our case is what the voters approved when they, voted for the millage.
I just want to make that clear for everybody. Thank you.
But
Thank
it
you very
doesn't have
much.
to be all in a group. I mean, you can pick and choose if you want to.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for the very thorough review, Ms. Gwynn. Item number 15, the sales and use tax report.
Okay, this is our normal monthly sales tax report. It's collections for the month of February, which is based on January sales. It's our second month of reporting for 2016. East Ascension drainage. The percent compared to February of collections of last year is down 1.45%, or 16,600. Year to date, it's up 2.45%. Sales tax district number 1 is up for the month compared to February 1.67%, and year to date up 11.3%. And sales tax district number 2, February collections compared to 2015 up 1.68%, and year to date up 11.59%. The budget comparison on the last set of figures on the right-hand side, comparing it to the budget is the percent of collections to the budget is currently 16.66%, And you can see that each sales tax district has exceeded the budget so far. There were no audits except for one real small one that was settled in January 16, so these are pretty average what's going on right now compared to, and what you're comparing it to was the real high months of the CF Industries construction. In the bar charts on the next page, you can see the sectors, and this is just based on our 1% sales tax, and it's just to give you an idea of what's being collected. The Sales Tax Authority prepares these charts, and you can see consumer retail and motor vehicles and the petrochemical industry are all up. The business-to-business is down compared so far to 2015 because of the large amount of businesses that were being profited by the big construction projects going on. And then on the pie chart, you can see that, once again, this is just a 1 cent sales tax, and it's just to give you, the council, an idea of where your taxes are being generated. And you can see the petrochemical industry. It also includes their major suppliers. If there's a business that's remitting to the Sales Tax Authority and their major work is done in the petrochemical industry, they're included in this figure. So that represents 60%, and you can go around. And then the last chart is the historical chart, which compares it from 2007 to 2016 to date. And the yellow is actual collections in all those years, and the red is the remainder of the year's collections. And once again, if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Mr. Dawson.
Thank you, Gwen. I'd asked you a couple of times about this, earmarking the one-time revenues. I was wondering if you'd given that any further thought. I mean, again, this goes, and you talked about it yourself, that, we're looking at major construction and petrochemical industries, so we're looking at these one-time revenues, and, I still don't see them broken out in the budget to where we know what's a one-time revenue and what's not. I guess you talked about CF, but I would question that because CF is starting up. I mean, they're not spending, the big.
Right.
It's coming from somewhere else.
Right.
I don't know where it is, but again, I would like to see us earmark that the one-time revenues to where we can at least know what they are and where they come from.
Yes, we did discuss that, and we did have one. All of our rebates were not issued except for one. So, that brought in a lot of one-time
Well, I mean,
money,
irregardless of rebates, I still think it's important,
Right.
Because we haven't done any rebates here lately, or we haven't entered into any agreements, but we're still doing this major construction where you've got probably $800 million in construction that went on, and, we don't know where that is in these numbers.
Right. And I would have to talk, I don't know if I even mentioned this, but I have to talk to Mark West, the sales tax administrator, because he's the one that collects this money, and he would have the best feel for where it's coming from.
Yeah. Well, again, my point is that we were able to mark that for CF. So I feel like it's possible.
Right.
If we were able to do that for CF, why can't we do it for these other large petrochemical construction projects?
Oh, I think we can. He's just going to have to
Okay.
set it up for us.
Thank you.
Item number 16, the revenue and expenditure report. Ms. Amanda.
Good evening. Before you are the financial reports for the month of February 2016. On page 1, total revenues are at 10.85% at 16.66% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are under the budget by 5% or more. There are 15 operating funds and 9 capital funds, and on page 4 of the report, there's an explanation for these funds. On page 2, total expenditures are at 15.51% at 16.66% of the year. The funds highlighted in green are funds that are over the budget by 5% or more. There are 7 operating funds and 3 capital funds, and on page 5 of the report is an explanation for those funds. On page 3 are charts that compare both year-to-date revenue and expenditure for operating, which is your yellow bar, and capital, which is the blue bar, to the budget, and that's the green bar. The last page of the report is a listing of all checks issued in February 2016 over $100,000, and the total of these checks are $2,979,647.34. Once you review it, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Lambert.
Amanda, this F.G. Sullivan, is this the final payment for the 2013 road maintenance? Or
I don't think
there's a very large punch item out there on this company, and I want to make sure that they address this stuff before we pay out.
I think we still have if it's the retainage on it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. Item number 17, bid items. To accept the lowest responsive bid, Ms. Jones.
On March 29, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 2 quotes for the installation of chloramine booster stations. After review, the Parish Utilities Department and H. David Cole and Associates recommend accepting the quote submitted by ICE Sales and Service and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
Motion.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Robert Randy Cluott and a second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On March 24th, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 3 quotes for the installation of a polyurethane roofing system. After review, the Purchasing Department recommends accepting the quote submitted by Expert Maintenance and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
Have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert,
Second.
second by Councilman Cagnolotti, excuse me, John Cagnolotti, and Randy has, Councilman Cluott has a question.
What roof is this for? What?
Old morgue.
The morgue.
I didn't want to say that.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm good.
All right, gotta keep them, gotta keep those folks covered. All right, item C, go ahead, Ms. Joe. Oh, I'm sorry, we had a motion and a second. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On March 1st, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 1 proposal for industrial uniform rental, other clothing items, and flat supplies. After review, the Non-Engineering Selection Committee recommend accepting the proposal submitted by Cintas Corporation and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
So moved, Madam Chairman.
Have a second by, a motion, excuse me, by Councilman Todd Lambert, a second by Councilman Aaron Lawler. Any questions?
I just have to say, these must be amazing uniforms. They're 65% polyester, 35% cotton, and then an extra 100% cotton. 200% uniform. I love these.
That's the Egyptian grade count.
Very good.
Do that.
Councilman Dawson.
Ms. Shivers, again, we had 1 respondent here, and, can you enlighten us why we couldn't get more than 1 quote on uniforms?
We did receive 2 quotes for the uniforms, the current company that we have, but we received their quote a week after we closed the quote date. So it became a non-responsive quote. After review, Cintas' proposal was a responsive quote.
Thank you.
Councilman Kluot.
See, Joan, now you got two councilmen asking you why there's only one response.
I love it.
I would think, that I would like to suggest, I don't know that, I know you do everything very, very detailed and totally legal, but we can't find some way to get 3 good responses? I mean, or why did quote come in a week late? Do you know, I'm sure when you told them that there wasn't any good, they might have told you, can you help me?
Yeah,
or
they
something.
did. The company
I don't know the
called
company.
and they had all kind of different explanation that the person that was handling this process, he's now gone and all kind of answers, but I didn't get it in time.
Yeah, and I mean, I've asked you questions on gravel and concrete culverts and stuff like that, but I'm like Bill, I would think that
we try.
That
We truly
somebody,
try.
you could get 3 responses on just about anything,
We're only
Formats.
required to advertise in the official journal and our online webpage. In addition to the official journal, which is the Gonzales Weekly, we also advertise in the Advocate and we advertise in the Donaldsonville Chief.
Yeah.
In addition, any company that has done business with us, we either fax them over a copy of the bid or quote request, or we email it to them. So we really try.
I know you do. I'm just want to explain it. Thank you, ma'am.
I understand. All right, here we go. We have a motion and a second. If we have no further questions, do we have any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes.
On March 10th, 2016, the Purchasing Department received 5 bids for the Marvin Bro Pump Station new pump and automated screen cleaner at Pump Bay Number 7. After review, East Ascension Drainage and Burt Kleinpeter recommend accepting the lowest responsive bid submitted by Wharton Smith Incorporated and to authorize the parish president to enter into any applicable agreement or contract for this service.
Motion.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilman Randy Kluot, a second by Councilman Benny Johnson. Any questions? Hearing none, any objections? Hearing none of those, that motion passes.
Thank you.
Item number 18,
Motion adjourned.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
And a second.